Good morning. I'm Brigid, and welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid. This is my daily, I guess you want to call it, I don't know if it's always entirely a ramble. It seems to be, good morning. It seems to be structured around a theme. Usually when I do these morning coffee things, usually there's some train of thought that I've been on that I like to share with people. It's been it's a beautiful morning today, actually. Here the sun came up probably. I mean, it's summertime, and so I have. I'm not used to the idea that the sun comes up around 5:45 in the morning. So I'm thinking, oh, okay, the sun's already up now. It's going to be interesting doing these in the wintertime when the sun doesn't come up till much later. But it's a beautiful day. We had a lot of rain last night, and again, I don't know if that's going to put them off from finishing the road repaving. I guess they're supposed to do it today and tomorrow, and then they're supposed to be done. So we'll see. We'll see whether that happens. The end of these live streams I've tended to be interrupted by the sound of machinery coming. They're supposed to start work at 7:30, but they seem to be starting at 7 instead. So hopefully today won't have that kind of an interruption. I have been. I had some reminders in the past couple of days because this is typically financially a very lean period for me because the semester's out for school. So I teach at university, and the university generally semester finishes up around mid-May, and that's usually the last time that I'm paid. And so with clients, I mean, now things have been good. I mean, I've been getting some new clients in and stuff, but it still hasn't been enough to really sustain, this month. And it's not entirely abnormal. I found that when I used to work in a shop doing some of the services that I provide here, this was also the time of year. It was like usually June, July, August. It was like very few people. I guess people were on holiday or they were doing things. So it's a very lean period. So I'm always kind of faced at this time of year with what am I going to do? Now, I happen to be a Taurus. So for me, being a Taurian means that and it could be attributed to that. You could attribute it to other stuff too. But I always tend to be the person who likes to know where the next check is coming from, right? So I have been living dangerously for the last 3 years. I did have savings, a certain amount of savings, but now I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, I've got to make things work. But I was on the phone with a friend last night who reminded me that you're living the life of an artist, is what they said. You're living the life of an artist, and welcome to it. Yeah, because that person's an artist as well. And you just you find, you do that, and then you try to gig other things in between just to try to make ends meet until the next thing comes up. So I was like, yeah, that's probably a good way to look at it. I mean, I don't tend to think of myself as an artist. I mean, I am a writer, and I guess that is a type of an artist. And I have created my own Oracle decks and stuff like that, so I suppose that's part of it as well. Good morning. So yeah, that's been a lot on my mind in the last few days, and but it's been interesting kind of working through that. So I felt like today what might be a better thing, rather than talking about a particular theme, unless a theme actually presents itself as we go along here, is I might actually just start with doing our readings this morning and just see what comes up, because I feel like it's, we'll see what feels like it should be talked about for people, not for myself personally, but for everybody who's watching currently, or if people watch it in the recording afterward. So I'm going to start by doing, just seeing what comes up. I actually have a couple of different decks here. I have my usual Zen Tarot, and then I have the Between Worlds deck, which I like a lot. This is an interesting one. I do have my Cartouche cards. Okay, that's my old favorite. Those of you who watch regularly know I've been using that one for 37 years. And then I also have my astrological Black Moon astrology cards. So let's see what pops up today that the universe seems to want to say to everybody. So let's see what we've got for the starters. Okay, this is interesting. So this is a reading that's about, good morning. This is a reading about freedom this morning. And if you've just joined me, I've decided I want to just basically do this as a live stream of readings just to see what comes up for everybody. Again, this is not meant for me personally, but whatever comes up, it could, I'm looking at some of this, and I'm saying, yeah, some of this resonates with what's going on with me, but it may resonate with other people as well. So our center card here is the abundance card. Okay, so abundance is the King of Pentacles. Now, abundance, I've talked about this on other live streams. You have the guy here who is, he's sort of sitting in the posture of a Buddha, but he kind of has all this kind of stuff around him and rainbows. And the idea here is that he is, they refer to him on this card as Zorba the Buddha, meaning that he is a guy who is both immersed in spirituality, has Buddha consciousness, that sort of enlightened consciousness, but also somebody who is also very much involved with the world and sensual pleasures and prosperity and things like that. So somebody who has not separated those two things. And as I've often said, this is a tantric card in the truest sense of the word. Tantra is a word that means to weave, to weave things together, and has to do with really. If you really study Tantra at its roots, like a lot of times here in Western world, we tend to think of Tantra as having to do with sex or sexual positions or techniques or doing sex to enlightenment kind of thing, and that's really not what Tantra is about. I mean, yes, certainly that's a component of it, because sex and sexual pleasure is certainly not something to be abstained from in Tantra. Because in Tantra, nothing is really abstained from. It's hey, everything's life. You live life, you experience life. And you take the stuff of life that is painful, and rather than saying, well, I'm going to purge this, and I'm going to, keep this, or I've decided that I only want this kind of experiences and not this kind, or I made a judgment call that certain kinds of decisions are bad and must go. Tantra says no, all of it is part of the divine experience. All of it is connected. It's all of this is what makes us human. And excuse me. I have this morning. This is one of the problems with doing this early morning, is that the allergies are not totally cleared up yet. So the idea is that you are, with this idea of abundance, it's just that you live in the world fully, I think is what it's trying to say. Because to me, Tantra is what they call, when you think of Vedic Hinduism is about scriptures. It's about the learned philosophers, the people who perhaps are already of privilege, of caste, or of social standing, and maybe of money even as well. And so they are the people who are, they're in a way, when you're in that kind of a position, you're a little bit removed from the world, because you are able to, it's like the Latin word for scholarship, which is schola, which really means leisure. Okay, or yeah, so when you're talking about leisure time, you're talking about the way in which you don't have to, in other words, somebody who doesn't have to engage in work or physical labor or the kind of day-to-day stuff that a lot of people have to work in, kind of like the 9-to-5-ish thing, I guess would be our equivalent. And so this would be saying to you, it's like, in other words, you're finding spirituality in the day-to-day. If you read a lot of the scriptures, there's almost this implication of detachment from the world, in the sense of pulling back, getting away from the world, and not participating in some way. But really, it's funny, I was reading from Psychotherapy East and West yesterday. I was taking some time to read from that by Alan Watts. And he had made an interesting statement about, I'm wondering if I'm going to remember it off the top of my head, but he made an interesting statement about what it means to detach from the world, or what it means to be non-attached. And I'm trying to remember exactly what he said. But I actually know I took a picture of it while I was reading it. So if I don't remember it here, I'll post it afterwards. Because he had made a comment about it that I thought was pretty profound, and it had to do with the fact that, I'm just, some reason I'm not going to recall it at this moment. Let's just keep going with the reading, and it may pop into my head. But he had said something that I thought was just like, okay, that was a way I hadn't really thought of, the idea of detachment. That's always been my complaint about both Eastern and Western religion, is this idea of being liberated from the experience of day to day. But okay, maybe I'm starting to remember this, because he was talking about samsara, which is the wheel that we're on, is really not, it's really more about the way in which we get attached to, it's more like that we get attached to certain situations or certain things, rather than letting things kind of flow as they do. And so we get on this wheel of not, samsara becomes this kind of, it's more of an attachment to a state of mind than it is to things per se. I mean, it can manifest in things. We can have certain things that we don't want to let go of. But the idea is that, everything's in flow. So, things come and they go, and they ebb and they flow. I will find the better quote though for that. But in any case, I feel like when we're talking about Tantra, we're talking about like regular person's spirituality, rather than the spirituality of people who maybe, have money and privilege and who are removed. And which is why Tantra ends up getting kind of a dangerous reputation. But that's really a subject I talk about a lot on my other podcast. Or rather, on my podcast, which is Katonia. I get into the way in which poverty and poverty consciousness tends to be connected to that sense of danger in religion. You're walking a razor's edge by saying you're going to live in the sensual world and try to be enlightened, and really what Tantra's saying, no, you're not. It's not something that you have to. There's certain things that we have to give up, but what you're giving up is not. It doesn't say like, okay, I'm never going to do this thing again. It's more like, no, it's like you give up your attachment to it. The attachment to it is different from the it's not a matter of abstaining or repressing. It's a matter of things come in and they go as they need to. But if we become attached, if we become addicted to certain things, and addictions aren't just about substances or things we eat, drink, whatever. It can also be about, we can get addicted to people or situations or different things, and the way in which we don't allow for that flow. Like that's where the samsara comes in. Anyway, I'm spending a lot of time on that one card. The inner feeling of which we're unaware is the traveling card. This is the Eight of Wands. Okay, so when the Eight of Wands comes up, this is about things moving and changing. And this can all be about time going very, very fast. And, good morning, Melissa. So this could be about time moving very, very fast, or this could also be about the way in which our lives are just moving along, maybe not in the way we're expecting or at the rate we're expecting. The thing about the traveling card is that there's no need to plan. That's the one thing about this. It's almost like in traditional tarot, Eight of Wands is about messages coming in or things happening very fast, where you may just get a sudden influx of communications or things like that. But this is the inner feeling of which you're unaware. And because we're talking about a fire element, there's a lot of intensity there. When you're talking about eights and you're talking about fire, you're talking about a lot of intensity, a lot of a need to move. Okay, need to move and to go. And a lot of people, I was talking about that with a client yesterday, about the idea of the restlessness that we have, that we just, when even when we need to be still, we can't sit still. It's like, okay, what's the next thing that I have to do here? I feel like with traveling, it's almost that kind of restless energy, but it's saying, things coming to you without you having to plan too much. Okay, so it's talking about things coming. And this is kind of what's going on unconsciously. There's stuff that's happening, and if we don't get the mind involved, then we can still go with the flow and act accordingly as things come up. Now, the external feeling of which we may be aware is the Ten of Swords. This is the rebirth card. And I've explained this before in terms of the Nietzschean story here about the camel, the lion, and then the boy. And basically the idea here is that you are whatever, and it does kind of dovetail with what I was talking about yesterday when I was talking about the way in which I think I've been talking a lot about the way in which the body has to experience certain things. And the rebirth card is almost like the whatever state you're in, whatever threshold you're on right now, the rebirth card means there's a sense of being able to burst out into the next thing. It's like you're literally getting ready for whatever phase you were in to come to an end so that you can move into the next one. And that'll be different for different people. If people have been in a state of complacency, and maybe they're waking up from something, then they might be moving into that lion phase where now they're very active. And lion energy, of course, is Leo energy. It's sun energy. It's more fire. Or you could be moving from that, stepping back from that very that very I don't want to call it. I guess I could call it an aggressive energy, but I don't necessarily mean it's like people are out being angry and mean or anything like that. I mean, it's just that very assertive kind of energy. You might be moving into this child phase too, which is where you kind of try to get back to beginner's mind again and see the world with the eyes of a child again. So again, everybody's different. It'll depend on where you are on your path. And I think probably, I feel most people who watch this live stream or who get involved know to a certain degree where they're at, or at least they know that they don't know. So if you have been in a state of not a feeling like things are moving and you don't know what you're doing or where you're going, and maybe you're trying to find that balance between the kind of awareness that you want to have and your own personal, the personal day-to-day stuff that you need to manage, I feel like you're getting ready to move into another phase here. There's this rebirth energy that we're going to move on to the next thing. Now the card that we have here is the advice card, is the understanding card. Okay, and again, I think this came up yesterday as well, because there's the birds in a cage, but you see that there's an opening here and they're flying out. So the idea is that you have always been free. Now, what's interesting about this with the understanding card is the fact that if you ever see an animal that has been, let's just say it's a very scared or very traumatized animal, and that animal may be trapped, maybe you catch a stray kitten or stray cat in a crate or something like that, and then you finally open the door, okay, to that, once you have them in a safe place, you open the door. The animal may not come out. The animal may shrink back into that corner and not come out. And there's an element of that to this card, of like saying you're free to move forward. Like there's not an obstacle in your path. You are free to move forward. You do have freedom of movement. You do have freedom of choice. But sometimes, and yeah, we see these birds that are flying free, but a lot of times we're still seeing the bars here and thinking it's not safe for me to cross, because we're so conditioned to having the limitation or having the obstacle or having the bars up in place that when we're free it's somehow, we've kind of made ourselves safe in the little prison that we're in, if that makes any sense. And the outcome card is isolation, okay? Now, on this particular card, this is the Three of Swords. Because remember, I've talked about the Three of Swords and the Five of Pentacles as being the two big things that we deal with. So this is a person who's like frozen in ice, but you see the person has tears, right? And so, and as the tears fall, you see that the ice starts to melt away. So there's the idea here. Now, this is more of an emotional kind of a card. This is about feeling not connected to people. And so with isolation, yeah, I mean, if we go back to the image here, it could almost be like we're trapped and we're not connected from other people, and or as I've talked about, the whole idea that we must go it alone, right? You have to go it alone. And I think this is saying, you're breaking out of that isolation, and we get isolated because of wounds, because of patterns, because of our experiences with people that tell us that, we've reached out for something and we've either been rejected or blocked or something in some way. So we start to feel, if you feel wounded that way enough times, then you don't want to reach out to people. You don't want to be in the public sphere. You might just, or you feel like you've been betrayed enough times. I mean, Ten of Swords sometimes is a card of betrayal for some people in the traditional decks. And so it might be like, fine, well, I have to figure this out on my own. And to a certain degree, yeah, I mean, we do have to rely on ourselves. We do ultimately, in the end, we're the person who takes responsibility for whatever it is that we do. But that doesn't mean that we're alone, and it doesn't mean that we don't have choices. It's... The idea, it's interesting because a lot has to do with ideas of freedom and ideas of abundance. It's almost like saying the world is right there. Everything is right there for you, but we still are kind of like that animal that's like backing away from it. Like I don't want to go out into the world. I don't want to get involved. I don't want to to put myself out there because either of a fear of rejection or just feeling, you can kind of get into the feeling of almost like a hopelessness, like, I can't do it. I'm not free to do this. I would love to make this change. This is what I want to do, but I'm blocked in all of these different ways. And these cards are just saying you might not be. You might not be. You might not be blocked in the ways that you think you are. As I said, for people who are joining me a little bit later, I am just basically doing a live stream of readings. So this is why I've kind of started with the reading rather than starting with some kind of a topic. And I hope I'm not being too repetitive here with certain things, but I'm trying to just see what comes up rather than spontaneously, rather than come in and say, okay, this is the thing I'm specifically going to talk about. So let's see. I wanted to pull up some cartouche cards and again, this is for people watching, for anybody who needs to hear this on the live stream. Let's just see what the theme is from cartouche for today. And see how it resonates with the other one. Yeah, okay. Interesting. Because our first card here is the Scarab card. So Scarab has to do with new beginnings. Remember we had the Ten of Swords card over here. We had the Rebirth card. So there's the idea that, yeah, there's some... I feel like for a lot of people now, there's a phase that's coming to an end in their lives. That you're not... that somehow the way things have always been done, maybe for you, something is different or something has changed, or maybe you're going to be moving into a space where something is going to change. So Scarab has to do with those new beginnings, with the idea that you are in a new space. I remember, what was it? Okay. This is jumping into my head for some reason, but Joseph Campbell, if anybody here has seen Joseph Campbell's Power of Myth, and if you haven't seen that series, by the way, I feel like I'm seeing more and more of it on YouTube. Certainly there is a DVD, which is quite expensive these days. I remember I bought it years ago for like $20, but it seemed to go up. Well, I don't know. I guess the second copy I bought was institutionals, maybe why. But there's the DVD, and I think Netflix has it as well. But if the series is worth watching at some point if you are somebody who is interested in these kinds of topics. Because, while there's a few things here and there that I don't agree with Campbell on, one of the things he talks about, and one of the reasons it's blocked, by the way, in so many places, is because he has parts of the original Star Wars film in there. Because George Lucas had consulted with him on the mythological elements of Star Wars. And in this one, one scene that you have in the original Star Wars where where Luke and Han Solo and all of them, they're in that bar with all these weird looking creatures. He points to that scene and he says, this is the liminal space. This is where you are in a space where no matter what you've learned, you're not prepared for what you're encountering here. You don't know how to behave in the new space. Okay, that's kind of coming into my mind here, like the idea of, sometimes we're in a new space, we don't know how to behave, right? And the thing that we, so we want to default back to the old way of behaving because we say, you love that analogy. Yeah, I think it was a really good one because it's like you're in this space and you're like, okay, I have to learn a whole new way of doing something here. And, that may be why we want to back away from things because, it's just kind of easier to stay here and not reach out. But, yeah, so, it's trying to learn that new thing. And that can be a very hard thing for us. Because we have Urias as the point of interest. And Urias is this idea of something... really, I believe in cartouche, this is really meant to be a card of secrecy or approaching things with caution or wisdom or that kind of a thing. But I also feel like Urias comes up when something is not what we think it is. When there's an unexpected energy to this. I almost feel like there's a Uranus element to this in the sense of this could just be something that it's like, okay, I don't know what this is. I don't know how to expect it. Now, of course, Urias is also promises that we will negotiate it. We will navigate whatever it is. But Urias is about it's just basically about something not being what it appears to be. So it might be telling you to be cautious about how you might be currently looking at something head on. It might be saying, there could be something going on around the edges. There could be information you don't have. So, or you just don't know how to behave at this point. Now, your factor to be considered here is the Crook and Flail. And this is a card, well, first of all, this is a card of being confident. This is a card of, and being disciplined. So, I mean, immediately the phrase jumping into my mind is, keep to your ground, keep to your center, meditate if you meditate. Like if you're in a new space, the best thing to do is just kind of stay in your own center, because then your inner voice will tell you how to interact, how to behave in the new space. If your logic or your sense of causality, we'll say, your sense of, oh, this is the way I did it before, if that wants to jump in automatically, you want to kind of be able to step back from that. And that's what meditative practice does. It allows you to step back from what the mind automatically wants to do. We'll call it mental muscle memory, right? What you end up doing and developing that new muscle memory, I feel like, is with crook and flail. Because this is about, it's about having confidence. It's also about being seen. Sometimes when this card comes up, it shows that, don't shortchange yourself. You are somebody who is recognized for what you do. You are somebody who people may look to for certain things, or you do have a good reputation, or at the very least, you haven't ticked somebody off. That's a lot of times what you rise. Sometimes if there's a worry about whether or not you've come across the way you should in a particular encounter or something, sometimes crook and flail will come up to say, no, you're fine. Nobody's looking at you like you're in the wrong. Okay. And then our card here, our advice card, is the fire card. And we just had that fire energy that was in there. So fire is just like, this is like that energy that's coming up. It's that impulse that we have inside of us that's trying to move us towards this change, towards this new space. And it's reminding us that we do have what it takes. I mean, crook and flail says, be confident in your ability to negotiate a new space. You can do it. And if something needs to be gotten rid of, you'll know, you'll be inspired to get rid of it. If you need inspiration in moving in a new direction, you'll have that, okay? Because fire, and it also can indicate an enduring situation too. So sometimes this can come up when we're not sure that something we've started or something we're doing is going to last. So fire can come up to say, once you've lit the flame's not going to go out. There's that kind of an energy to it. And our outcome card is Horus. So again, more fire. This is Leo energy as well. Horus in this deck it's about healing, okay? So, and again, what comes into my head is, you have to heal the past before you can move forward. So a lot of what might be going on for people is, as you're moving into a new space, there may be stuff coming up for you that is just maybe stuff you thought was dead and buried in your life, and it could have to do with people, it could have to do with feelings, it could have to do with a lot of things, or just expectations or aspects of your identity. There's different possibilities here. But when Horus comes up, there's this idea of healing, of working through things. This is very much a community card, so this is about being supported not only by family, but also by friends, okay? This is a very strong card of friendship, of charisma, of people liking you for who you are. So somebody here might need to hear that if you're feeling a sense of self-doubt. It was like Fred Rogers. I like you just the way you are. It's kind of that kind of a thing. There's definitely this sense here of being somebody who is charismatic, somebody who is seen, somebody who is loved by people, I guess. It's not. I feel like there's a reassurance here in this particular reading for somebody that you're not somebody who is. We had the isolation card in the other reading, so this is not about you being. You're not going to be ignored. You know what I mean? You are somebody who is definitely seen and definitely has talents to offer, and so that's the abundance you want to get into. You want to get into the space of center yourself, but get into the space of what it is that you of doing what you love and offering whatever it is that you feel you have to offer or share, and that it is valuable. It is valuable to somebody, even if there's some people who tell you that what you're offering is not valuable. This is saying. There's only something. We all have more going for ourselves than we give ourselves credit for. I still feel like that initial understanding card that we had with the birds, the cage bars removed, and not always being willing to fly out. That I feel like is almost the theme here that we're looking at today with this. And good morning to anybody who's joined a little later. Like I said, I'm just doing a couple extra readings today. I'm trying to just work through readings to see what comes up here today for everybody. So so let's see what we get. And this time I'm using my Between Worlds deck, speaking of Between Worlds, which I was talking about before. And I want to see what comes up with this one. This may be the last one that I do. I could pull one of the astrology cards too if we want. Okay, so the 3 cards we have are Triumph, okay? We have the Healer card. So we were just talking about healing, right? And then we have Domination. And it's really interesting because, once again, we have this bird and then we have this bird in the cage. I couldn't make that up. There's this interesting... Now, the Triumph card, like I said, this is a new deck to me, so I like to tend to read from it. The fire has been managed. Isn't that interesting? Fire's been managed. Phoenix is rising. Despite what was a difficult trek, you've arrived at the top of the mountain. Ferocious, but soft and wiser all the same from the journey that ushered you here. Who are you to become in this new skin? While you can't forget the past, it's a great time to write new stories. So, yeah, I mean, I think that, oh, you're welcome, Melissa. Hopefully you have a good day, and I'll see you, hopefully, in the future. So yeah, Triumph here is, so this is the idea of great time to write new stories. Literally what I was just talking about in the other reading. So that's really, really interesting. And then we have the Healer energy. This is one of the astrological ones, and I can't remember which one it is. It's Virgo. And so it says, engulfed in light, the healer is able to hold and transmute hurt. They themselves have known pain and worked through the wounds. Now they are a doula, caretaker, and guardian. The healer, however, does no actual healing. They tend to traumas, lay a patient path, and nourish where needed. Their work is in the collective liberation of all beings. But the healer takes no credit for what the healed ultimately do for themselves. Yeah, and that's what I was saying a little bit about the way that we personally end up being accountable for everything that we do. We can have people who are guides. And in fact, that is the kind of work that I do. I mean, I guide people, but ultimately people do their own healing. It's not that if I do Reiki for somebody or when I start doing Rahani, it does what it does. I'm not the person. I've had clients come and say like, oh, I had terrible back pain my whole life, and then I started going to you and now it's gone. And I'm like, that's great. I'm like, but I didn't do that. The energy of the universe does its own thing. And I'm just the conduit. Anybody who you work with, whether it be somebody who does what I do, whether it's somebody who's a therapist, whatever, is a conduit. Okay, you're a conduit for something, and as a conduit, you remember that it's not about our individual. I mean, we should feel good about the work that we're doing, about our work as a conduits, but it's not necessarily that we. You don't want to mistake that for like, look at me, I'm a great, whatever, healer or whatever. So there's definitely this sense of healing, but this does talk about the work of healing as well. And then we have the Domination card. As much as this is a card about control, there is somehow a sense of not having any. Okay, and that's really where the problem is. We want control when we feel we don't have it. This card asks on whom or what you are dependent and to reassess where you consent to giving away your power. Is there an outside force keeping you here, or are you choosing to stay in the suffering? Literally, where was it in here? For those of you who joined late, it was literally this card, okay, that came up. And now we have this card. So yeah, so there's definitely a theme here of appreciating what it is, what your gifts are, what it is that you know, right? And so this is a potentially liberating card. The cage is open. I mean, I couldn't make this up. There's the way that these kinds of things pop up in these readings. So let me just do an astrology card here, just to see if I can see what I want to come out for today, and then that will probably. Oh, here we go. Solar eclipse, revolution card. Okay, so we're talking about change, right? Talking about a revolution, literally. When this card comes up, it indicates this is like we just come out of eclipse season. Technically, the energies of solar eclipses in particular can last up to 6 months. So some of the change that's going on for people may be connected to the recent solar eclipses that we had in April. Well, the solar eclipse, singular, that we had in April. And I feel like that may be why for a lot of people, things are being set in motion right now, or maybe we all feel like we're, things are changing that we did not expect. We're finding ourselves in spaces that we did not expect, with challenges we did not expect. and it may be just saying, you know, and we may be reluctant to meet those challenges because maybe we feel like, I don't know enough. I'm not good enough. I don't have enough of this. I'm not enough of that. Like there's some thing that I don't have, and therefore I'm not able to do it. And it's saying, well, I think you are. You are. You just don't sell yourself short. Really, is what this comes down to. Don't sell yourself short in all of this. And I'm really feeling like I have to find this quote for you. I was reading the other day, and it's okay. I was talking about this earlier, about what he says about, okay, I think I found it. Yes, here it is. So this was something I was talking about liberation before, and about the idea of attachment and samsara being on that wheel of birth, death, and rebirth. And this is what Alan Watts has to say about it, and I feel like I'm going to end with this because this is something that he says. So he talks about the doctrine of sunyata, or voidness, asserts that only there are no self-existent forms. For the more one concentrates on any individual thing, the more it turns out to involve the whole universe. The final Buddhist vision of the world is Dharmadhatu, loosely translatable as the field of related functions. It's not so different from the worldview of Western science, except that the vision is experiential rather than theoretical. Poetically, it's symbolized as a vast network of jewels, like drops of dew upon a multidimensional spiderweb. Looking closely at any single jewel, one beholds in it the reflection of all the others. The relationship between the jewels is technically called thing/thing no obstacle, which is to say that any one form is inseparable from all other forms. In sum, then, the Buddhist discipline is to realize that anguish or conflict, dukkha, arises from grasping, trishna, of entities singled out from the world by ignorance, avidya. Grasping in the sense of acting or feeling towards them as if they were actually independent of context. Okay, this is the piece I was not grasping when I was trying to speak earlier about it. This sets in motion the samsara, or vicious circle, of trying to solve the false problem of wrestling life from death, pleasure from pain, good from evil, and self from not self. In short, to get one's ego permanently one up on life. But through the meditation discipline, the student finds out that he cannot stop grasping so long as he thinks of himself as the ego, which can either act or refrain from action. The attempt not to grasp rests upon the same false premise as the grasping, that thinking and doing, intending and choosing are caused by an ego, that physical events flow from a social fiction. The unreality of ego is discovered in finding out that there is nothing which it can either do or not do to stop grasping. Okay, so that's where surrender comes in. This insight, prajna, brings about nirvana, release from the false problem. But nirvana is a radical transformation of how it feels to be alive. It feels as if everything were myself, or as if everything, including my thoughts and actions, were happening of itself. There are still efforts, choices, and decisions, but not in the sense that I make them. They arise of themselves in relation to circumstances. This is therefore to feel life, not as an encounter between subject and object, but as a polarized field where the contest of opposites has become the play of opposites. Okay, that's the thing I wanted to say there. And I thought that was really the important thing. The idea that, so this idea of yielding is just when because you participate in everything, that participation means that it's not just about me as an individual and what I'm going to do. It's about, it's like the whole of everything participates with you. And that's, intellectually, I think that's rather hard for us to necessarily wrap our minds around. But sometimes that's why the idea is that we have to stand back and see what the system is going to do for us, or in what direction we're going to be guided, or which way the river is going to take us. So interesting stuff that's come up in today's readings. Okay, we're at 10 past, so I'm probably going to stop now. I'm not hearing any sound out there, so I'm wondering if they're not going to work today. But I want to thank you all for joining me. Yeah, like I said, this was a little bit of a free form today. I didn't really have a particular topic. I just wanted to see what the cards said. And I do hope that this was helpful to you guys. And I do appreciate all of you who have joined. I really appreciate you a lot. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And again, this will be available on Instagram, and I'll upload it to YouTube. Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure. And yeah, so I'll upload this to YouTube, and then we'll be back again tomorrow morning. So have a great day. Take care.